In the collector's odyssey, the fusion of discovery and diligence is paramount. The digital realms of eBay Motors, Hemmings, ClassicCars.com, and Bring a Trailer offer gateways to hidden automotive treasures, while local car shows and auctions pulse with potential finds. Knowledge is the collector's compass. Market trends and vehicle conditions are the stars by which to navigate. A classic car's body, engine, and interior narrate its history, each detail a clue to its value. Documentation is crucial. The title and maintenance history charting a course to legitimate ownership. Car clubs and forums buzz with insider leads, transforming whispers into the reality of one's collection. With classic car values ascending, each acquisition is a calculated move in a market ripe with investment potential. This segment charts a collector's journey from curiosity to conquest through the vibrant landscape of classic car collecting. So I want to ask Garrett about the story of his car.
Okay. All right. So I'll make this brief. So I bought the car in 2017 in December out of Las Vegas. I already had companies come on board to help me with the project. I acquired more and more. We got the car going, and in about 2018, we got the car running, driving, and we took it on Hot Rod Power Tour 2019. That was the first show the car had ever been to. It only had seen miles just around town on break-in, and we literally wrenched on the car the night before we left to go on the trip. So we drove from Atlanta to Concord, North Carolina, which is just outside of Charlotte, to ZMAX, which is the first stop of the Hot Rod Power Tour, and went to the pre-meet the first night, parked at the hotel, everything was fine. Second night we went to the show, or second day we went to the show, came back, parked at the hotel, woke up the next morning, and that was the time everybody was getting ready to leave to go to the next stop. And I just happened to look out the window because I heard cars starting. I look out the window, I look over to where my car was parked, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's where I parked it last night. And I asked my buddy who was with me, I was like, is that where I parked the car? He's like, I don't know. And so then it finally hit me. I was like, there's no way somebody stole my car that night. And mine, along with four other cars that morning. So it was mine, 80 Malibu wagon that was parked just to the left of me, and then three other 90s GM vehicles from a different hotel down the road. And it took a little over a month for me to be notified that my car was found. The only saving grace that I have for my car in my possession and not completely demolished, or actually demolished at all, was the fact that because of my social media following, immediately after it happened, I took to my friends and it got blown up on social media. I mean, everybody and their mother, people I didn't know, were sharing about it, that it was stolen. And the only thing I can think is that the people who stole it, somebody must have told them who I was or the heat that was on it, and they ditched it. And then so many weeks later, some kids found it ditched in a field about two towns over from where we were, and then I was able to buy the car back from it because, ironically, the insurance had just paid me a week before I had gotten the letter from the police department saying they had found the car, because me and my parents had just moved, and so it took a minute for the letter to get to our new address. And so I had just gotten paid, and then I got the letter, and I went and bought the car back from insurance. So it was insane. That's one of the craziest stories. Yeah, one of the craziest stories, man. And the only thing I wish is that they found who stole the cars, because sadly the three other people that their cars were taken, they didn't find them. The only other car that was found was the 80 Malibu wagon, and sadly his was vandalized, but he still got it back, and he worked in paint and body, so he was able to get the car back right. But it was an unfortunate series of events, but I'm just thankful that I was able to get my car back and in condition that it's still drivable.
Man, when you love your car as much as you do, and you put the effort in to build it, how did you feel emotionally when you don't see the car parked where it's supposed to be?
Okay, so obviously this being my first hot rod, it wasn't my first vehicle I built. but it was my first hot rod, and I had a lot of heart into this, mainly because, get back to the social media thing, the time that I put into building my channel and building the relationships that I did with the companies, and then for them to want to work with me and sponsor me on parts, like that all meant a lot to me. Um, and then for all of it to just be gone in a blink of an eye without me having any way to stop it, well, I felt powerless. I felt defeated. And then knowing how this goes with especially with older cars, I didn't have anything in me to think that the car was going to be found. If I didn't have any concrete evidence after like the first few hours, I was just like, it's over with. This car is gone. So I pretty much gave up, and yeah, I was just in a rut, man, for like a month. But the best part about the whole thing was the fact that so many people had my back. Like all the companies that worked with me came to me and told me, they were like, "Don't worry about it. We got your back. The next vehicle you get, don't worry, we got you." I had companies offer to give me a new project vehicle for free to
Wow.
start. So I just felt a lot of love, man. It was genuinely the most humbling experience to just people that you don't really even have that much of a connection with come together and willing to help you. It was one of the most heartfelt things I've ever experienced in my life.
Ed, I've heard you say that the backstory, even if there's a bad history, enriches the ownership. Can you share a story where VinWiki helped you to find a hidden gem?
Well, we found a lot of interesting cars, but I think when you talk about a car that, if it hadn't been for the theft, the recovery, and the community behind him, Garrett would have sold the car when he got a great offer for it. But like he said, now he's attached to it for very good reason, because when he can share that not only is this car a car he dreamt of, a car he lusted after, a car he put together and built with his bare hands, it's also a car that represents what he's accomplished professionally. And so, there are cars. I very nearly bought a Lamborghini I didn't need just because 6 years ago, we found the car after it had been stolen for 6 years. Now, I didn't have any attachment to the car. I just happened to drive by it in a Target parking lot, and I knew there were not supposed to be any orange 2008 Superleggeras in Georgia at the time. And so I figured out what it was, where it was from, and through our app, we figured out what the VIN was, and we were able to get in touch with the people that would have owned it and help them to get it back. It was a longer story, but at the end of the day, the idea, I'd much rather own that one than a not stolen one, just because I'd get to tell people about that every time they're like, "Oh, where do you like your car?"
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
How about you, Ray? You've been quiet over there in your corner.
I remember back when the Chrysler Sebrings were getting popular. My wife and I went to look at a Sebring convertible, at a brand new one at the dealership. Took it for a ride, but when I brought it back, I said to myself, "Well, gee, if we look for a classic car or a street rod convertible," I says, "and we keep it in good shape, it'll hold its value. Where if we bought the Sebring, as soon as we drove it off the lot, we'd lose value." So what happened was, only a couple weeks later, I found a 72 Chevelle convertible, a red one, black interior, really a nice car. I paid 12 grand for it. And I had it about 5-6 years. And I decided I wanted something else. So I sold it and I got 12 grand out of it. Where if I would have bought the Sebring, I would have lost money on it, unless I kept it for 30 years or something,
Smart.
So,
That is
yeah,
exactly
well, I
right.
thought it was good for me. It was a good deal for me. So,
And Andy, that's a good moment to just be very, very clear on a video with the title that this one has. Cars are not an investment.
yeah,
Cars are a wonderful hobby. And
yeah,
hobbies work the best when you maximize the residual value of the things that you need to buy to do them. And therefore, if we think about the factors that make cars retain their value, we minimize the cost. We just saw last weekend, Sotheby's sold one of the most expensive cars ever to sell at auction, the second most expensive, in fact, a 250 GTO. It was a Series 1 car, one of the only ones that was actually campaigned by the factory, really special, not necessarily born as a 250, but made by Ferrari into a 250 GTO, one of 39 cars. At some points been thought of as the most valuable types of car in the world, and it sold for a hammer price of $48 million, more than $51 million in fees. Now, that car obviously has had a long-term, very significant increase in value. But a good friend of mine, Steve Leto, who's an attorney in Michigan, grew up next door to that car, and his neighbor sold that car around 1980 for $1 million. Now, you would think that said owner that missed out on the other $50 million of appreciation would feel really bad. But no car has ever beaten the stock market for more than a decade. And there have been many moments where cars beat the stock market by a lot over a very short period of time, but that does not sustain. And so that prompted me, the result of this, with the knowledge of when it had sold, looking back, guess what the stock market has returned since 1980? 12,000%. So $1 million invested in a reasonable way in 1980 is $120 million today. More than twice what he would have had making the actual smartest automotive buying decision that any human being could. And so I think it's just really, really important that we are clear that investing in cars is a strategy to mitigate the cost of a hobby. It is not the best place to park your money long term.
Well, I've never bought a car as an investment. I bought it to enjoy, drive it, and hopefully get my money out of it when I sell it. And so far, I've been very, very lucky. And but I do know people that have cars and they think they've got gold. You know what I mean? They think they're a lot more value than what I think they are, anyways. But to each his own,
The worst category of people I find, and I think it's transatlantic too, is people that keep their cars like you put plastic on your sofas at home.
Yep.
It makes no sense. I don't understand it. I'm sorry. Then sell it to someone like me if you have to do that, or sell it to someone else who loves cars. If you don't use your cars, then there's no passion in that. There's just cold calculation. So go invest on the stock market. Do that. You'll get a better return over a longer period of time. Cars have a soul. I'm sentimental about this.
I use my cars. I don't misuse them. You know what I mean? You'll see my car at the Tops grocery store. You'll see it at a Walmart. What I do, though, is I try to park way far away so nobody parks next to me, because a lot of people don't like to walk. So I park way far away.
That is proven to not necessarily work, because people will take that as an invitation to be like, this guy thinks he's special. And then they'll go park right next to you, and you'd be like, what the hell, man?
I know. That has happened, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm sure that happens to you a lot.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Well, but it's easy to make those kinds of people the punching bag of the automotive hobby, to say that if you are going to only care about the preservation of value or the condition of your car, that you're not a true enthusiast. And while it is very different than the demeanor of most car enthusiasts, it still is not wrong. Again, this is a hobby, not an investment activity. And if what makes them feel good is the belief that they have put their car in the greatest condition that it can, and they are doing what it takes to preserve that condition, then it's okay for that to be the way that they enjoy it. And it's honestly what keeps these cars around for us to eventually buy them and drive them like crazy. I bought it recently because it had 49,800 miles as a Lamborghini, and somebody thought it was radically going to change the value. And I sent him a picture of me driving it home from their house in the rain, passing 50,000 miles. And I'm sure he had a minor aneurysm, but that was because I was treating it differently. It doesn't mean that he didn't have an amazing ownership experience, and he did make a good bit of money on this car. But at the end of the day, I think I'll have more fun owning it the way that I want to own it.
Oh, yeah. To each his own. Yep.
I like that. To each his own. So let's go to segment 4.